In 1973, a woman named Lima Mui stood in a kitchen the size of a closet in a walk-up apartment in Chinatown, San Francisco. She had been in America for 11 days. She had $14, a pot she carried from Malaysia wrapped in a sarong, and a handful of dried herbs she smuggled in the lining of her suitcase because she knew she would not find them here. She made bak kut teh on a hot plate at 2 in the morning because the smell of pork and garlic and star anise was the only thing that made the apartment feel like somewhere a person could survive. That soup is number 18 on this list. Hi, my name is Jason, and this is Lost Asian Foods. Number 25. Congee with century egg. A cup of broken rice. Water. A century egg your grandmother wrapped in cloth before the flight because she knew she would need it. The rice cooked down for an hour until it dissolved into something silky and thick. Neither soup nor porridge, but something more honest than both. The century egg went in at the end, sliced into quarters, gray-green and translucent, and deeply strange-looking to anyone who did not grow up eating it. Sliced ginger, sesame oil, white pepper. In Cantonese households across Los Angeles and Vancouver in the 1970s, this bowl appeared every time someone was sick, cold, tired, or homesick. Your grandmother bought the broken rice on purpose. It cost less than the good rice. She knew exactly what she was doing. One pot fed 4 people twice. Nobody photographs a gray egg in white porridge. But nothing else does to a cold body at 8 years old what that bowl does. Nothing comes close. Number 24. Sotanghon soup, glass noodles. Transparent, coiled, almost invisible in the package. A Filipino grandmother in Daly City soaked them in cold water while the chicken bones simmered. Garlic went into the oil first. Always garlic, always more than you think. Then onion. Then shredded chicken pulled from bones that had been boiling since before anyone else in the house was awake. Fish sauce. Black pepper. The glass noodles went in last and swelled and turned soft and golden. Sotanghon was the soup Filipino immigrant families made on Sundays when 12 people showed up to an apartment meant for 4. The noodles stretched the pot. The fish sauce made it taste like something that came from a real kitchen, which it did. A kitchen the size of a hallway in a city that had never heard of fish sauce. Your tita waved a dish towel at the window so the neighbors would not complain. She cooked it anyway, every single Sunday. Number 23. Sayur lodeh, coconut milk, tempeh, long beans and cabbage, with a spice paste your grandmother ground by hand because the blender from Goodwill kept overheating. Indonesian and Malaysian families made sayur lodeh when the refrigerator had more vegetables than meat, which was most weeks. The tempeh provided protein. The coconut milk provided richness. The spice paste, lemongrass, galangal, dried chili, and candlenut provided the thing that made a foreign apartment smell for exactly 45 minutes, like home. A pot cost under $2 in 1976. It fed a family of 5. For families sending money back across the Pacific, $2 for dinner was not a small thing. It was a calculation. Sayur lodeh was what happened when the calculation came out right. Nobody put it on a meal kit subscription. The tempeh frightened American grocery stores for 2 more decades. Your grandmother already knew what the nutritionist would spend another 30 years figuring out. She just called it dinner. Number 22. Japchae. Korean glass noodles made from sweet potato starch, tossed with spinach, carrots, onion, and whatever scraps of beef the family could afford that week. Sometimes the beef was paper thin. Sometimes it was absent entirely, replaced with extra mushrooms, and nobody said a word about it. The noodles cooked separately. The vegetables cooked separately. Everything came together in one bowl with sesame oil, soy sauce, and sugar, tossed by hand. Your grandmother's, her hands were always slightly stained from the soy sauce. She did not wear gloves. In Korean immigrant households across Los Angeles in the 1970s, japchae appeared at every gathering. Birthdays, church potlucks, the dinner you made when a neighbor helped you fill out a form at the immigration office. It was the dish that said thank you and welcome, and we are still here, all at the same time. Today restaurants charge $18 for it. Your grandmother made it for 70 cents. It tasted better. Her hands knew something no professional kitchen has ever replicated. That knowledge costs nothing and cannot be bought. Number 21. Miso shiru with tofu. 3 ingredients: miso paste, tofu, wakame seaweed, and dashi, made from a piece of dried kombu your grandmother kept in a paper bag, folded over 3 times and stored in the back of the cabinet like it was something precious. Which it was. Japanese immigrant families in the 1970s made miso soup every single morning. Not as a side dish, as the meal. A bowl of rice and a bowl of miso soup. That was breakfast. That was sometimes lunch. The miso paste cost almost nothing. The tofu was the cheapest protein at the Asian grocery on Jackson Street. The wakame rehydrated from dry in 30 seconds. The whole pot took 8 minutes. For a Japanese grandmother in Seattle in 1971 who was still learning English and still finding her footing in a country that had, not long before, tried very hard to erase her, those 8 minutes at the stove were the most certain part of the day. The soup was always the same. The soup was always right. Everything outside the kitchen was uncertain. The miso was not. Number 20. Arroz caldo. Rice cooked down in a ginger broth with chicken until it became something between a soup and a porridge that coated the throat and settled the stomach. A squeeze of calamansi on top. Fried garlic. Sliced boiled egg if you had one. Scallions. Fish sauce on the side in a small dish because everyone seasoned their own bowl differently, and your grandmother respected that. She would not season your bowl for you. That was your business. In Filipino households across the United States, in the 1970s, arroz caldo was the sick day meal, the cold day meal, the just got off a 12-hour shift meal, and the I do not want to be in this country today meal. It cost almost nothing. 1 cup of rice, a few pieces of chicken, a knob of ginger. Without it, it was plain rice soup. With it, it was medicine. Your Lola knew that without ever reading a nutrition label. She had been feeding sick people back to health with ginger and rice for 50 years before she stepped on a plane. Number 19. Kaya toast. Coconut jam made from coconut milk, eggs, sugar and palbitter and pandan leaves. Cooked slowly over a double boiler while someone stood there stirring for 45 minutes without stopping. Spread thick on white bread, toasted. Paired with a soft-boiled egg cracked into a small dish with dark soy sauce and white pepper. That was the whole breakfast. Singaporean and Malaysian immigrant families in the 1970s brought this breakfast across the Pacific and rebuilt it in apartments where pandan leaves were impossible to find. Your grandmother substituted pandan extract from a small bottle she bought at the one Asian grocery in her city. It was not the same as fresh. She knew it was not the same. She made it anyway because the ritual of making kaya, of standing at the stove, stirring slowly while the jam darkened and thickened, was worth doing even when one ingredient was wrong. The jam kept for weeks in the refrigerator. Every morning it was there. Every morning the toast was the same. When you are living in a country that feels sideways, the same toast every morning is not boring. It is an anchor. Number 18. Bak kut teh. Pork ribs, garlic, star anise, cinnamon, cloves, dried mushrooms, soy sauce, a bundle of herbs your grandmother brought from Malaysia in the lining of her suitcase. The pot simmered for 2 hours. The apartment smelled like a medicine hall, a kitchen, and a temple all at the same time. Bak kut teh means pork bone tea in Hokkien. The tea refers to the strong Chinese tea served alongside it, drunk from small cups to cut through the richness of the pork. In Malaysian and Singaporean immigrant communities in San Francisco and Los Angeles in the 1970s, bak kut teh was the Sunday morning meal, the one that required time, the one that meant your family was not going anywhere that day. For a family who worked 6 days a week in a restaurant, a laundry, a grocery, a factory, Sunday bak kut teh was the proof that the week had ended and the body could rest. The ribs cost almost nothing because butchers in Chinatown sold the bones cheap. The herbs were the expensive part. Your grandmother made them last. She measured nothing, but she never got it wrong. Number 17. Thukpa. Hand-pulled noodles in a broth made from whatever bones were available, with dried vegetables carried from Nepal or Tibet because the fresh ones did not exist in any American market in 1974. Thukpa was the cold-weather survival food of Tibetan and Nepali immigrant families. Real cold, the kind that came through the walls of a building with bad heating, required something more than warmth. It required familiarity. The noodles were pulled by hand, not rolled, not cut, pulled, stretched between the palms until thick and slightly uneven, because handmade things are always slightly uneven. A bowl of thukpa in a Denver apartment in January 1977 was not just dinner, it was the taste of somewhere 10,000 miles away. Your grandfather pulled them anyway. Number 16. Dalcha. Mutton bones, lentils, tamarind, and a spice base of onion, garlic, ginger, cinnamon, cardamom, and dried chili. Indian and Malaysian Indian immigrant families made dalcha on special occasions and on desperate ones. The mutton bones cost almost nothing because they were the part nobody else wanted. The lentils broke down into a thick gravy that clung to the bones. The tamarind gave it a sourness that cut through the richness of the marrow. The whole meal cost under $1.50. It tasted like it cost much more because your grandmother had been building this flavor for 40 years. You cannot fake 40 years. You can follow the recipe exactly and still not get there. The thing missing from your version is not an ingredient. It is a lifetime. Number 15. Lugao. Rice porridge, made thin enough to pour, with pork intestine cleaned and cut into small pieces, a hard-boiled egg cut in half, a squeeze of calamansi, and fried garlic on top. In the Philippines, lugao was street food. In America in the 1970s, it was what Filipino families made when someone was sick and there was nothing else. Cleaning the intestine took patience and a willingness to do something that smelled unpleasant in the process of becoming something extraordinary. Your grandmother cleaned them without complaint. She had cleaned them her whole life. She was not going to stop because she was now doing it in Stockton instead of Cebu. Lugao without the offal is just thin rice soup. With it, it is medicine. Number 14. Juk Cantonese rice porridge. Not the same as arroz caldo, not the same as Thai jok, not the same as Japanese okayu. Still, they are all, at the end of the day, rice cooked in a great deal of water for a long time. Long grain rice, pork, preserved egg, fresh ginger, scallion, sesame oil, and white pepper. It is cooked until the rice completely dissolves and the porridge is completely smooth. In Cantonese immigrant households in San Francisco and New York in the 1970s, juk was what your grandmother made when she wanted to say "I love you" without using the words. When you were sick. After bad news. On cold mornings before school. 1 cup of rice. A small piece of pork. Enough for everyone. That simple math was the whole point. You learned it by watching. It was never written down because it never needed to be. Number 13. Bubur cha cha. Taro, sweet potato, yam, sago pearls, and coconut milk sweetened with palm sugar. Malaysian and Singaporean families made bubur cha cha as dessert, as breakfast, or as the thing you ate at 3 in the afternoon when the word for what you were feeling was homesick, but you did not have the energy to say it. The coconut milk had to be the real kind, thick, the kind that separated in the can and had to be stirred back together. The taro had to be completely soft, not firm. That softness was the whole point. A bowl cost almost nothing. It required patience and the willingness to cube taro by hand. Your grandmother did it while watching television. Her hands moved without her looking. That is what 40 years of making something looks like. Number 12. Kao Tom. Thai rice soup, lighter than congee, clearer than juk, faster than almost anything else on this list. Cooked rice dropped into a clear pork broth with ginger, garlic, and fish sauce. The rice softened in 10 minutes, with fried garlic on top, a cracked egg stirred in at the end, and a dusting of white pepper. In Thai immigrant households in Los Angeles, in the 1970s, Kao Tom was the midnight meal. The meal you made after a long shift when you did not have the energy to think. It was made from yesterday's leftover rice and a broth your mother kept on the back burner. The rice was already cooked, the broth was already warm, and all you had to do was put them together. Sometimes that is enough. Sometimes that is everything. Number 11. Sabzi polo, herb rice. Fenugreek, dill, parsley, cilantro, and chives are mixed into white rice with dried limes that give the whole pot a sour, floral, slightly medicinal perfume. Iranian immigrant families made sabzi polo for Nowruz, the Persian New Year, and for every occasion that needed to feel like more than a weeknight. The dried limes were the problem in America. They were not in any grocery store in 1973. Your grandmother drove 2 hours to the one Iranian shop that carried them. She bought enough for the whole year and counted them carefully because she did not know when she would get more. The rice was cooked with a golden, crispy crust at the bottom called tahdig, the most argued over part of any Iranian meal. Your grandmother always said she did not want any. She ate the most. I am not going to pretend that is not relatable. Number 10. Tinola. Chicken, green papaya, malunggay leaves, ginger, fish sauce, and water. That is the complete recipe. The chicken simmered until the meat fell off the bone. The green papaya softened into something that absorbed the broth completely. The malunggay leaves went in at the very end and wilted in 30 seconds. In Filipino households across the United States, in the 1970s, tinola was the meal that required no occasion. You made it because someone looked tired, because the weather had turned, because the green papaya at the Filipino grocery was ripe. The malunggay leaves were the hard part to find, so Filipino immigrant mothers kept malunggay trees in pots on their back porches and shared cuttings with each other the way other people share phone numbers. That network of women passing cuttings across back fences in American suburbs is one of the most beautiful supply chains in the history of immigrant cooking. Number 9. Sambar. Lentils, tamarind, tomatoes, drumstick, and a spice powder your grandmother roasted and ground herself from coriander, cumin, dried red chili, curry leaves, and black pepper. She made it in large batches and stored it in a glass jar that sat on the counter. It was always there. In South Indian immigrant households across the United States in the 1970s, sambar was the daily constant. Drumstick when she could find it, eggplant when she could not. But the base never changed. Tur dal, tamarind, tomato, spice powder, and mustard seeds popped in hot oil at the end. That pop is the sound of South Indian cooking. If you grew up hearing it, you never forget it. If you never wrote the recipe down before she was gone, I am not going to make you feel worse. Call whoever still makes it in your family. Tonight. Number 8. Doenjang jjigae. Fermented soybean paste, tofu, zucchini, mushrooms, and anchovy broth. Korean immigrant families made doenjang jjigae in a clay pot because the clay pot retained heat, and because it was the one thing you could bring from Korea without anyone questioning it at customs. Your grandmother's clay pot was dark from years of use. She washed it by hand and dried it upside down because a seasoned clay pot is not replaceable. The doenjang had to be the old kind, fermented for years in earthenware jars. The neighbors definitely noticed the smell. She was aware of this. She kept making it anyway. The whole pot took 20 minutes. At the table, it arrived still bubbling. You burned your tongue on the first spoonful every single time, and you went back for more immediately. That is not a mistake. That is tradition. Number 7. Chao Long. Chao Long is Vietnamese rice porridge made with pork offal, intestine, liver, heart, blood cake. All of it cleaned and cooked with care, and served in a thin, clear rice porridge with fresh ginger, fried shallots, sliced chili, and an enormous pile of fresh herbs on the side. In Vietnamese immigrant communities in the 1970s, Chao Long was the breakfast that cost the least and fed the most. The offal was the cheapest cut at the butcher. A full pot cost under $1. The herbs were the expensive part, and your grandmother grew what she could in pots on the windowsill. Rau ram, Vietnamese mint culantro, which is not the same as cilantro, and if you have ever substituted one for the other in front of a Vietnamese grandmother, you know exactly what the consequences of that decision are. The blood cake is the part that disappears first from the American version of this dish. Then the liver, then the heart. By the time the restaurant version reaches you, it is just plain congee with a few pieces of pork. That version is fine, but it is not Chao Long. Your grandmother would eat the real thing and not understand why anyone would bother with the polite version. Number 6. Khichdi. Rice and lentils cooked together in one pot with ghee, turmeric, cumin seeds, sometimes a piece of dried chili, and nothing else. Indian immigrant families, across every region of India, across every language and every caste and every community, had a version of khichdi. That is how old and how fundamental this dish is. It is the one thing everyone agrees on. When someone was sick, khichdi. When the budget ran out before the month did, khichdi. When the children were tired of complicated food, khichdi. A cup of rice, half a cup of lentils, a spoon of ghee, a pinch of turmeric, water. That is the recipe. It has not changed in 1,000 years. In Indian immigrant households across the United States in the 1970s, khichdi was the dish that reminded everyone that survival did not have to be complicated. Feeding a body well did not require money, or time, or elaborate preparation. It required rice and lentils, and the knowledge, passed down across so many generations, that it no longer felt like knowledge. It felt like instinct of how to put them together. Number 5. Oden. A Japanese winter stew made in a single pot with fish cake, daikon radish, konnyaku, boiled eggs, tofu, and a clear dashi broth flavored with soy sauce and mirin. Everything simmered together for hours until the daikon turned translucent and absorbed the broth completely. The fish cakes became soft and dense, and the eggs turned the color of the broth all the way through. In Japanese immigrant households in the 1970s, oden appeared in October and stayed until March. The pot sat on the stove for days, replenished as things were eaten, the broth growing deeper in flavor as the week went on. By Thursday, the oden tasted better than it did on Monday. By the weekend, it was something else entirely. Something that could not be made from scratch in one sitting. Something that required time and repetition and the willingness to tend a pot across multiple days. That willingness is what made oden taste the way it tasted. The ingredient that made it extraordinary was not in any grocery store. It was patience. The sustained, daily, unglamorous patience of keeping a pot going through a cold week in a city far from home. Number 4. Mohinga. Burmese catfish broth, thick with roasted chickpea flour and banana stem, poured over thin rice noodles and topped with crispy fried shallots, sliced fish cake, a hard-boiled egg, fresh cilantro, a squeeze of lime, and dried chili flakes. In Burma, it is breakfast. It has been breakfast for centuries. In Burmese immigrant households in the United States, in the 1970s, mohinga was Sunday. The catfish broth took 2 hours. The banana stem, which had to be prepared carefully to remove the fibrous threads that ran through it, took another 30 minutes. The chickpea flour had to be roasted until it smelled nutty, and then dissolved into the broth slowly while someone stirred to prevent lumps. The fried shallots had to be made separately. This was not a fast meal. It was an event. For a Burmese family in a city where nobody had ever heard of mohinga, making it on a Sunday morning was an act of cultural insistence. We are here. We are still cooking this. This is still what Sunday morning smells like in our house, even if it does not smell like this anywhere else on the block. Number 3. Tao Yu Bak. Pork belly braised in dark soy sauce, light soy sauce, garlic, and 5-spice until the fat turned glossy and soft, and the sauce reduced into something thick, sweet, and savory that you wanted to pour over everything. Hard-boiled eggs braised in the same pot until they turned dark brown all the way through. Tofu puffs absorbed the sauce completely. In Malaysian and Singaporean Chinese households in the 1970s, Tao Yu Bak was the Sunday meal that required almost no money and rewarded almost everything. A half kilo of pork belly cost very little. The dark soy sauce was the expensive ingredient, and it lasted for months. The whole pot cost under $2 and produced enough food for a family of 5 with rice. The key was time. The pork had to braise for at least 90 minutes, ideally 2 hours, until the fat layers completely softened, and the collagen broke down into the sauce. Rushing it produced something edible. Waiting produced something unforgettable. Your grandmother did not rush it. She had nowhere to be. She had a pot of pork belly to watch. That was the plan for the afternoon, and she did not feel bad about it. Number 2. Adobo Sagata. Chicken adobo finished in coconut milk. The chicken was braised first in vinegar, garlic, bay leaves, and black pepper until the vinegar had reduced and the chicken had absorbed it completely. Then the coconut milk went in, and the whole pot simmered until the sauce thickened and turned a pale ivory color, and the fat from the coconut milk rose to the surface. The smell was something that made people stop walking past the door. In Filipino households across the United States in the 1970s, adobo sa gata was the meal your grandmother made when she wanted to make something special and had almost nothing to work with. Regular adobo was already there. Adobo sa gata was the version that required one additional ingredient, 1 can of coconut milk, and that single addition transformed the dish into something that tasted like a celebration. A can of coconut milk cost 40 cents. The chicken cost whatever chicken cost that week. The vinegar was already on the shelf. For 40 cents more than a regular Tuesday dinner, you had something that tasted like a feast. Your grandmother understood that economy. She had built her whole cooking life around it. Number 1. Jokamu. Minced pork, ginger, rice, a raw egg cracked into the bowl at the table, white pepper, fried garlic, a thread of sesame oil, Thai rice porridge, Chinese in origin, carried across Southeast Asia by the diaspora and carried again to America by families who brought the recipe in their memory because there was no room in the suitcase. The rice soaked overnight. The broth went on before dawn. The minced pork was dropped in raw, and it cooked in 90 seconds. The egg was cracked into your own bowl and stirred by your own hand. That small act was the whole point. The best food does not just feed you. It asks you to finish it yourself. Make one of these this week. Just one. Buy a cup of broken rice and boil it down with ginger and a century egg. Braise a piece of pork belly in dark soy sauce and wait. Pull noodles by hand, even if they come out uneven. Call your grandmother. If she is still here, stand next to her and watch how she does it. Watch her hands. Watch when she adds the salt, because she will not measure it and she will not explain it. She will just add it at the right moment, and that moment is what you need to see. If she is not here, find whoever in your family still carries the recipe, not the written version, the real version, the one that lives in someone's hands. Because these dishes are not just food. They are the proof that a woman with a single pot, $14 and herbs smuggled in a suitcase, can build a kitchen in a country that does not know her name, can feed a family in a language the neighbors do not speak, can make a one-room apartment in a foreign city smell for 45 minutes exactly like home. The pot is still on the stove. The flame is still going. Someone just has to decide to use it. Tell me in the comments which of these your grandmother made. Tell me which one you are going to cook this week. Tell me if anyone else's grandmother hid the century eggs in the back of the refrigerator when company came over. Because these are not just recipes. They are what it looks like when a family refuses to disappear.